Can everyone hear me? All right, cool. So good morning. My name is Madhu Kalari Vasu. I'm actually an engineering manager in the Google Analytics team in California. So over the years, me and my team, we built a few set of features for Google Analytics, starting from the Universal Analytics platform, AdWords and Google Analytics integration, parts of multi-channel funnels, real-time user-centric analytics, and also the actionability that's associated with user-centric analytics. But the focus for today's session, or today's talk, is going to be around user-centric analytics and actionability. And I'm really happy to be here, so thank you very much. So when people ask me what has changed in Google Analytics in the last 10 years, this is one of my favorite pictures to show. The picture on the left is taken in 2005. This is a group of people who have assembled somewhere near St. Peter's Square in Vatican City. And if you notice, this is in 2005. Almost it's like 2 years before Apple launched their first version of iPhone and the advent of smartphones. You'll notice that you'll hardly have one or two people like checking their devices, maybe making calls, but otherwise everyone else is kind of in the moment, witnessing what's happening. In contrast, it's almost the same place in Vatican City in 2013. If you notice, almost everybody at this point has a smartphone in their hand or a tablet or some kind of a smart device. So they are actually enjoying the moment that they are watching or witnessing. At the same time, they're actually sharing it with their loved ones and staying connected online. So this is the new reality. The new reality is almost everyone has multiple devices and almost everyone is staying connected online throughout the day. To substantiate this, there was a study that was done recently which figured out that on an average, a user spends about 150 odd transactions or interactions per day with their connected device. And also a person on average spends about 177 minutes or like 180 minutes approximately per day with their smartphones. So on average, if you do the math, each interaction is maybe like a minute or a few seconds. So that's the new reality. I mean, you're not dealing with the concept of a captive visitor. Like earlier, your visitors used to come to your site, and they used to spend like anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes trying to understand your product, trying to browse through your different products to buy something. But that's not the case anymore. These days, users have a window of like a few seconds to get what they want. And if they don't get what they want at the right time that they need it, they're going to context switch to another device or another business or something like that. So it's important for you to understand that the window of opportunity for you to capture somebody's attention is really, really small in the current world of multi-touch and multiple devices. So since the user journey is now fragmented across multiple devices and multiple touch points, it's all the more important for you to have a first-class analytics solution that provides user-centric or user-based analytics that works at enterprise scale. So if you look at it from a broad perspective, what marketers need is top 3 things, which is first, they want to understand a user's view, like a user's journey, to understand where the user is going and how are they finding something and what are they purchasing. The second is they need access to user-centric analysis tools and analysis techniques. And the most important, the third thing is not just use all these techniques and analysis methods, but also being able to act and connect the user at the right time with the right content. So the crux of the story is it's important for you to pivot on users or people. So what happened is there was an eMarketer survey that was done for the top 100 advertisers. And what came out of it is more than 50% of the businesses say that they don't have a single view of the user across multiple devices or touch points. I think it's not even more than 50%. I think it's close to 84% of the businesses say that they don't have a complete view of a user. And the second point that came out of this survey of top 100 advertisers is about 33% of advertisers said they are not spending much on their ad budgets because they're not able to get insights at the people level. They're getting insights at an aggregated level across a group of users, but they need insights at the specific user level, which was not available to them. To substantiate this, what happened is, like in the Google Analytics team, we met and spoke to some of our top customers or clients. And the story that we got from them was kind of consistent with the survey that happened here. For example, one of our top customers from the travel vertical said that they are ready to bid 5x more on users who've spent more than $100 in their lifetime, and if the person is a loyal customer. And another example is a customer in the vacation rental business. They said they're ready to bid more on users who have done more than 3 transactions in their whole lifetime, and also somebody who has come to your site in the last 30 days but hasn't purchased something. So if you see the trend in both these, it's the lifetime concept. Somebody wants to work on a lifetime revenue, and another customer wants to work on lifetime transactions. So they want to figure out what is the user level attribute that I can work on, and use that user level attribute to actually start bidding more in the real-time bidding. So it kind of substantiates the point that we need to focus more on the user-centric story to actually deliver engaging experiences to our customers. So knowing that, what we did in Google Analytics, we understood that this is a new reality, and this is going to be the new reality going forward. So what we said is we're going to pivot our mission for 2017 to be something that is helping the businesses understand and take action on their customer behavior and interactions and experiences. So this is going to be our mission in 2017, but how are we going to accomplish this mission? So we sat and thought about it, and we said, like, there should be at least 3 main pillars or 3 main themes that we should focus on. The first is Google Analytics should provide you the ability to understand your customer journey. There are two key things to remember over here. First is the survey that I talked about in the earlier slide said that about 84% of the advertisers, or more than 50% of advertisers, said they don't have a single view of the user. The reason for that is their data sources are not well integrated. So they have some blind spots that they're not covering. But that's point number 1. Point number 2 is even if their data sources are well integrated, they need to have the ability to segment users differently so that they can act on these group of users also differently depending on their usage pattern or the behavior. So 2 key insights that I came across while analyzing this is there was a recent survey of mobile searches that happened, and it was surprising to find about 67% of mobile searches for health and beauty products or influencers of health and beauty products were men. And about 56 or 57% of mobile searches for sports apparel and shopping were from women. So if you remember, like if you go with preconceived notions, not looking at data, not understanding the user journey, you might be targeting different group of users based on your preconceived notions. But if you look at the data might present some interesting insights for you that you haven't thought about. So it's important for you to understand the user journey, because it's also important to understand that each user is different. And the second theme that we're going to focus on is to deliver important insights and not just throw data back at you. Like, for example, there was a survey that said in 2015, there were about 1 trillion connected devices. So the last thing you need to worry about is data, because as long as you tag your events and your pages properly, you'll get all the data that you need. In fact, you'll drown in this data. So what's important for you, or important for the customers, is Google Analytics can provide some intelligent insights automatically using some kind of machine learning so that you can actually figure out what's happening in the data and deliver some key insights back to you. So that's an area that we think we should be focusing on. And the third thing that we think we should be focusing on for the people-centric analysis is the ability to deliver engaging experiences. So the year 2016, the customers are going to focus on how to deliver engaging experiences. And the companies that are going to have an edge on that aspect is going to have a competitive edge over their other competitors. So it's important for businesses, important that businesses thrive by having and deliver engaging experiences. So what we've realized in Google Analytics is, in Google Analytics, it's not just key to understand the user journey and get insights, but also enable you to actually deliver engaging experiences for your customers. So understanding and delivering on these three themes is our #1 priority. But what we did is, we said, yes, it's important that we build a people-centric platform for you. But to build this people-centric platform, we sat and thought, what is it that we need to change in our product? And we came up with three main pillars that we should change to pivot our product to a people-centric platform. And we've already done some investments in this. We started this pivot slowly about a year and a half, or maybe we started 2 years back and started delivering features a year and a half back to you. So what I'm going to do in this talk is talk about investments that we have made in this area, and also investments that we are continuing to make in this area. So it's divided into three main pillars. The first pillar is the data model, where we think, or we know that we need to expand our data model capabilities with certain features like user metrics, and also certain features that gives you user-level attributes, the lifetime revenue, lifetime transactions, and others, which you can use in segmentation, reporting, and remarketing. So I'm actually going to go into the details of each of this pillar in subsequent slides. The second thing that we want to focus on is reporting and analysis. We're going to focus on the reporting techniques so that you have the ability to understand your customer journey better. We already have some features delivered for you in this area, like we have cohorts, LTV, we have User Explorer, and there are new things coming up called audiences concept and audiences-based reporting. And finally, we are going to invest in the space of insights and actions, where we're going to make the Google Analytics data actionable with a concept called as audiences. And we're also going to use machine learning to deliver intelligent insights based on your data. So again, there are some investments we have made in this area, like the smart data initiatives. You would have heard about smart goals, smart lists, session quality metric. More recently, we launched GA Assistant and automated insights. But we are going to invest more in this space, and also I'll talk a little bit about actionability part of it and remarketing. So with that, I'll go into each of this pillar a bit more in detail. So the first change we are doing is in the data model, we are going to support a metric called as users metric. By show of hands, how many of you have used the audience section in Google Analytics? Cool. So if you have used the audience section in Google Analytics, you will notice that you will see a lot of reports where we have a bunch of dimensions, where it's age, gender, demographics, or any kind of demographics information, broken down by some metrics. And one of the key metrics you'll see there is called the session metrics. Now, we understand that session metrics is key for you, it's useful for you. But we also realize that what's more useful for you going down the multi-touch world is the number of users. It's important for you to know how many 18 to 25-year-olds are accessing my site on a day-to-day basis, or how many male users do I have, how many female users do I have, or how many male users from a particular region are showing a particular behavior. So what we're going to do first is slowly pivot most of the dimensions in the audience section from a user or from a session metric to a users metric. Now, you will get the ability to look at the sessions metric if you want to, but the default behavior is going to pivot to users. And this is coming soon, as in like in the matter of next few months. And the next key change that we are doing in the data model perspective is support a concept that's called user-level attributes. So this was not something that was available in product earlier, but this is something that's going to come up in the next few weeks to months, is what we're going to do is at individual user level, we're going to collect some key statistics or key attributes about the user. So at each user level, we're going to say, what is this user's lifetime revenue? What is this user's lifetime transactions or lifetime goals? And also some key attributes like what is the acquisition channel? When did they come last time? And what is the acquisition source and acquisition medium? And the key thing over here is this user level attributes can then be used in segmentation. So you can actually create a segment saying, I want to look at users who have spent more than $100 in their lifetime. And the definition of lifetime could be 6 months, a year, or even 2 years, as long as the user is active in your business or your site. So think about the possibilities over here. Like what you would be able to do right now is go and take a segment like this and apply it on any report and just see the behavior of your top customers or top valued customers. Or maybe you can create another one that says, how many users are abandoning my cart? And just to see what is their behavior. So on a day-to-day basis, you can like segment your whole traffic into smaller groups of traffic that's important for your business and that you can actually then act upon. So these are the two main or key things that we're going to do in terms of pivoting our data model to a user-centric world. With that, I'll move to a concept of, with that I'll move to the reporting and analysis pillar. What I'm going to do over here is build on the previous slide. So in this slide, I talked about user-level attributes, especially the lifetime-based metrics. What we're going to do in the reporting section is have the ability for you to define new dimensions called audiences based on the user-level attributes. So you can go and say, I'm going to create a new dimension called high-valued customers. You can define it any way you want. Let's say I'm going to define it as customers who have spent $1,000 and who have visited more than 100 times to my site. So these are my definition of loyal customers. So once I create this dimension, I would then have a new report that says audiences report. I'll have these new dimensions shown. I'll have the breakdown of users. So you can have a quick overview of, okay, I have this month about 1,000 users who are high valued who have visited my site. So this is very important for you to think about, because if you did not have this and you had just the users metric, so it's very easy to lose the insights. For example, you'll say month over month, my users metric is kind of staying stagnant. So maybe it's okay, my business is doing well. But underneath, what might be happening is there's a higher churn rate. You might be losing a lot of high valued customers, and you might be gaining a few new customers who are not converting. So it's very important to lose those key insights. So it's important to define few dimensions that are key for your business and try to figure out how their performance is month over month. And the few key dimensions that you create are not just dimensions based on their behavior in last 7 days or 30 days, but you can define it based on their lifetime attributes or lifetime property. And this is a feature that's in the whitelist right now, and that's going to launch for all the customers by early 2017, or like the second or third month of 2017. And the next is one of my favorite report, it's cohorts report. Most of you have already known this because I think we launched this a year and a half back. The cohort report, if you haven't used it, what it basically does is it pivots based on the acquisition date, and then you'll be able to see the user retention. So for example, over here, you see October 3rd, 2016, I acquired 4,000 odd users, and October 4th, I acquired 3,000 odd users. You would then say day to day, like first day, I retained 2.56% of the 4,000 users. Day 2, I retained 1.97% of the 4,000 users. So it's easy for you to figure out which cohort is performing better in terms of retaining and which cohorts are not performing better. Then you might want to think about what is different in terms of how did I acquire people on this window. And it's not just day-to-day analysis. You can look at cohorts at weekly boundaries, at monthly boundaries too. The reason why I'm talking about this one is we have made the cohort reports pivot on the acquisition date, but there are further enhancements coming in this space where you can pivot the cohort based on the first transaction date, first goal completion date, or the first time a specific event happened. You can define the event as someone became a loyal customer or someone subscribed to my mailing list and things like that. And it's not just the retention that you can see in the cohort report. You can pretty much look at the cohort report for any kind of demand or any kind of metric, which is goals or transactions or revenue, whatever it is that you want. And you can see what the behavior looks like over the next N days since that event happened. In the similar context, we also have a report that's called the lifetime value report or the LTV report. This is a report, you would see only this report today if you're a mobile app developer, because it's available only for mobile app profiles. But if you have a mobile app and if you use this report, what it basically does is it looks at the people whom I acquired over a given window. Let's say I acquired people in the month of Jan, and I'm going to look at their lifetime revenue that they've accumulated over the next 90 days, broken down by acquisition channel or broken down by acquisition source or acquisition medium. So you get an idea of how many users did I acquire from a specific channel and what is their lifetime revenue. And you also figure out what is the average revenue per user that I'm getting from this channel. This is a very useful report, A, to figure out which channel is giving you high-valued customers, and B, also figuring out why is it, at what point do your customers stop spending? Like, for example, over here you say around day 42, it kind of becomes stagnant. Users are spending less. And then there is a push later on. Maybe you had a campaign which is actually re-engaging these customers to spend a lot more. So it's important to figure out at what point is the lifetime revenue or the revenue that's becoming stagnant, and trying to figure out how do I re-engage these customers so that the churn rate is not as high as what it is. And two key things over here is, remember I said like this is available only for mobile app profiles. But we are changing that by the end of this year or the early next year. We're going to make this report available for any kind of customer, whether it's a web profile or app profile, because we think it's a very valuable report for you to understand the lifetime revenue of the users. And the second thing is the revenue that you see over here is historical revenue, as in this is transactions that the users have spent. But there is a second component to it, which is the predictive LTV. Like, we can get into the aspect of this is how much the user has spent so far, but we can also look at the usage pattern and then figure out how much is their potential to spend. So the user has spent $100, but we'll say that this user has a potential to spend $1,000 more. It's going to be very valuable to you. So I just want to let you know that in 2017, we're going to invest more in the predictive metrics, and one of the predictive metrics we're going to invest is the predictive LTV. And this is a report that we launched recently. It's one of a kind in GA, and the reason why I'm saying it's one of a kind in GA is the only report where you'll be able to break down the metrics, that the sessions, bounce rate, or revenue by individual users. So you should be able to see the client ID or the cookie ID and look at the different metrics. And for example, if you use a feature called user ID override, I don't know how many of you use user ID override. So in summary, what it basically does is if you have a logged in experience for your site, and if you have users accessing from mobile or web, what you'll do is in the tag, once a user logs in, you take the internal ID, and then you set it as user ID so that Google Analytics in the background can stitch all your events across multiple devices by the user ID that you send, so that you'll have a good cross-device story or cross-device experience. So if you did use user ID override, what you'll notice is instead of the client ID over here, you'll basically notice the user ID that's actually passed by you, so that you'll say that what is the user ID and what are my different metrics. But what's the cool thing about this report is it's not just the user explorer where you see the aggregate or where you see the user level metrics. For example, you say that this particular user has spent $334, but you want to figure out what is it that this user did so that they actually spent this much. So what you can do is click on this specific user, and that will take you to a report that's called individual user report, where on the left side, you'll be able to see the user profile, which is basically when did you acquire this user? When was this person last seen? What are the different custom dimensions? And then on the top, you'll see the summary for the date range, as in how many sessions, how much time did they spend, how much revenue did they generate. And below, it's like an activity stream. You'll be able to drill down to a session level, drill down to a hit level, and try to see, okay, for this session, they spent about 25 minutes, they came from a direct channel, they had this many goals, this many transactions, and then you kind of look at the user journey. So it's a pretty interesting report where you can drill down to a specific user and try to understand their behavior. And finally, in the reporting and analysis section, we are also investing in the cross-device story. Remember I said, like, if you use user ID override, and if you set the internal user ID, If you set that, then we'll give you a cross-device report, which is basically, it shows the overlap of how many users are exclusively coming from desktop, how many users exclusively from mobile or tablet, and how many users are overlapping between multiple devices. And it's important because it gives you good insights to figure out, like if you haven't, if you have an AdWords campaign you're targeting only to desktop, it's important for you to understand that there are users coming from other devices. So you might want to broaden the targeting criteria. And also for you to understand that I haven't invested much in the tablet user experience. So it's important for you to understand I have substantial users. I also see good revenue from tablet. So it's important for me to start investing in that space. And in a similar context, you also have a cross-device path report. And what the cross-device path report does is basically it goes through the different device transitions. And then it also shows the aggregated user counts and the sessions and the revenue over here. So this is valuable. For example, if you look at the row 5, it says mobile to desktop. You're seeing that it generates the maximum revenue of all the other sequences or the path. So it's important for you to then think about why is it the case that people are transitioning from a mobile to desktop to generate a lot of revenue. So it's important for you to then drill down further to understand some key insights. So that brings up another interesting point that I want to bring out is I did call out the different features in isolation. Like for example, I did say you have audiences report, you have cohort report, LTV, user explorer, individual user report, and more recently cross-device. But for you to do the analysis, it's important to stitch everything together to present the story. So for example, you look at this, you say, okay, this seems interesting, but it's important to not stop there. What you can then do is create a sequence-based segment, figuring out that users who have followed the sequence, users who have moved from mobile to desktop, and take that particular segment and apply that segment into the user explorer report. And once you've applied it over there, you will see the list of users who have followed that transition. Then you can click on each individual user, and then you can figure out a pattern. The pattern could be anything. The pattern could be that you didn't have a good payment flow in mobile. Maybe that's why they went back to desktop. Or maybe in the mobile, they just were trying to context switch, trying to do some research on different products, but then they did go directly to the desktop, read some reviews, and then completed the purchase. Maybe there was an organic search. Maybe there was an ad that got shown in desktop that actually pushed them towards a purchase. So it's important to actually apply all these techniques together to actually deliver some key insights back to you. So with that, I've covered two key areas. The first is the changes we're doing to the data model. Second is the changes we are doing to the reporting and analysis pillar. Now I want to go a bit into the last pillar, which is changes to the insights and the actionability part of it. So in insights, if you notice, just last month, or like sometime in September, we launched a feature that's called GA Assistant and Insights. What it basically does is it uses Google's machine learning technologies to basically figure out interesting patterns from your data. So what it basically does is it uses machine learning or machine intelligence, goes through the treasure trove of data that you have, figure out some key insights, and then it also learns based on user feedback over the period. For example, it shows some insights back to you, and you can give a feedback saying, this insight was useful, this insight was not useful. It starts learning from it. And it also enables sharing those insights with other people in the org so that you can actually take actions better. So what this basically does is it gives you some intelligent insights that you might then miss out if you were just looking at it manually. So what happens is at the base of this, it uses some of the smart algorithms, data sciences, and the amazing computing power that companies like Google provide to then deliver insights quicker so that you can then figure out there is a pattern that's developing. I want to drill down before it's too late. For example, the insights, what it does is it complements Assistant by saying you have 250 odd dimensions and metrics in Google Analytics. So if you look at the combinations of dimensions and metrics that you need to analyze on a day-to-day basis, it's going to be too exponential. You'll have too many things to analyze. So what Insights does, it does the job for you to figure out the pattern and see if it's a dip or it's going up, and gives you some key insights saying, look, the revenue in Chile or the revenue in New York is actually dipping, so that you can then drill down further and see what is happening and what should I do to actually fix this problem. So the GA Assistant and Insights together is what we call as the Google Now of Google Analytics. And there's a lot of investments that is going to go further in this area over the next few months to years. But what I want to touch upon is we are going to use the GA Assistant platform to actually build some key user-based insights. There are a few things that's already available to you. That's called the Smart Goals and Smart Lists. So what Smart Goals and Smart Lists does is it uses machine learning to figure out that this goal is going to be important for you. If you focus on this goal, you'll get a lot more converters. So instead of you trying to figure out these patterns and create the goals manually, Google Analytics automatically creates these goals for you. And similarly, the Smart List is what Google Analytics then figures out using machine learning and saying these are the users who have high potential of converting. So it's better for you to then start working on the actionability plan for these Smart Lists. And the third thing that we launched recently is called a session quality metric, where we believe not all sessions are the same. Like for example, we have a report that says campaign XYZ gave you 500 sessions. But not all sessions are the same, as in not all sessions will lead to a conversion. So what we're trying to do is provide some kind of a score for each session on a scale from 0 to 1 to figure out what is a high probability of a session converting. So you'll say, this campaign gave me 500 sessions, but it only gave so much high quality sessions, which will lead to a conversion. So all of this is based on machine learning. And not just that, in the future, we are also going to invest looking at a user's history and giving something called as probability of conversion score. So you kind of get an idea of this user has a higher probability of converting or this user has a lower probability of converting. This is based on the usage pattern that we have seen from this particular user. And why is it important? Because we'll show this probability of conversion score in the individual user report, but you can also start acting on it. For example, in remarketing, you can then figure out, I might bid higher for a user that has a higher probability of converting, or I might bid lower on a person who has a lower probability of converting. So that way you can actually get more acquisition for the cost that you're actually spending in AdWords. So in summary, I touched upon data model changes, I touched upon reporting and analysis changes, and more recently, the intelligent insights. The last section of my talk is going to focus on the concept of actionability. So the actionability is once you have looked at the data, once you have got the insights, whether you got the insights manually or whether you got insights based on machine learning, it's important to act on them. If you don't act on them, it's actually only useful to figure out the patterns, but not give any returns back to your business. So in the core of the actionability story in Google Analytics is a concept that we are calling as audiences. And what we've done in audiences is we have designed this concept of audiences in Google Analytics in such a way that you can actually take it and seamlessly it will work across different products in the GA suite, and it'll also work across different products within Google. For example, like you can take the GA 360 audiences and work with the Audience Center 360 to then basically say, I'm going to remarket to customers who have at least $75,000 as income and who have seen at least 5 ad clicks and who have a lifetime revenue of $100. So it's a combination of the audiences from GA and it's a combination of the data from the Audience Center that you can actually merge and then remarket or act upon these users. Similarly, you can take the audiences from the Analytics 360 and work with Optimize 360 to run A/B experiments for basically some customers who have spent like $10 over their lifetime and people who have not visited people who are loyal customers who have not visited in the last 30 days. So what you might want to think about is Optimize then gives you a different kind of customer experience for the loyal customers. So they kind of feel more engaged with your business and they start converting more. And similarly, you can take audiences concept not just within the products on the GA suite, which I think Scott will go into details in the next talk, but also outside the suite. Like, for example, you can use the GA audiences in the DoubleClick mid-manager. You can also use audiences in the DoubleClick for publishers. And last but not the least, The most important aspect in our actionability story is the AdWords integration, where you can then remarket to search ads, remarket to display, and also use a concept called dynamic remarketing to have a better engagement story. So as I said, the audiences has multiple destinations. I wouldn't have time to cover all the destinations in this talk, so I'm actually going to just pick one important thing out of it, which is the AdWords integration. And another thing I want to call out is I'm going to go only at high level in this session, but if you're interested, there is a technical track in the afternoon where I'll go into the details of how do you create audience and how do you take actions on them. So before I get into the remarketing story, I know that most of you might have used remarketing, but I just want to give a pretty high-level overview of what remarketing does for you. What it basically does is very simple. Like a prospect or a user visits your site, and then they basically look at some of your products, and then they leave the site. So now, if you didn't do anything, what happens is the survey says about 4% of the users come back to your site. About 96% of the users, once they have visited your site, never come back to your site, for whatever be the reason. So what remarketing then does is, once a user has visited your site, we start tracking that user, and then we start showing relevant ads for that user on other sites. So that it kind of makes them come back to your site and see what has changed or what is different. So what you're basically doing is, instead of forgetting about the 96% of the users who never come back to your site, now you're creating a story for these 96% of the users to actually re-engage with your site. And a percentage of them might start converting, and a percentage of the converters might then become loyal customers who will then end up being brand ambassadors. So the remarketing is a pretty important tool to actually re-engage with the customers. Like, few years back when we spoke about remarketing, people used to always think of it as an option strategy. Like marketers used to think, okay, that's an advanced concept, that's an optional thing that we might do. But in a multi-touch world like today, this has become as an important or always-on strategy. The reason why it's important and always-on is, remember I told you that we are not dealing with captive visitors anymore. We are dealing with visitors who are ready to spend only like a few seconds with your business before they move to another one. So it's important for you to deliver the right content at the right time to the right set of users. And that's exactly what remarketing does. So just to give you one concrete example, we looked at all the data from enhanced e-commerce profiles, and then we created a funnel and said, like, there are 18% of the people who leave your site after they visit a product, before adding anything to a cart. But if you did re-engage with these customers using remarketing or using any other avenue of actionability, they are 3x more likely to convert. And the similar concept, there is 6% of the users who leave your site after adding something to a cart, but before beginning the checkout process. Because either they're busy or they didn't like something or whatever be the reason. But if you engaged with these customers again using some kind of an actionability story, they are 8x more likely to convert. And finally, there are 2% of the people who leave once they begin a checkout process, but before hitting the last complete purchase button. But if you did remarket or re-engage to these users, they are 17x more likely to convert. So what remarketing does is 4 things. It basically tries to plug the funnel leak that I showed over here. It also helps you re-engage with your customers. It helps give relevant ads. Instead of giving static ads that is not in context with what the customers are looking for, you actually give them relevant ads. And finally, it also provides you an avenue to discover a new set of users. So instead of just focusing on the users that you've created the remarketing segment on, there are concepts for you to actually discover new users that you did not even think about. And I'll go into a little bit of detail in the subsequent slide on how you can do that. And another key reason why it's easier to use remarketing is the concept called instant activation. Like a few years back, if you had to use remarketing in GA, you had to go and change the tags in all your pages by saying, okay, enable the display advertising and enable display advertising. But of course, with Google Tag Manager, that thing is slightly better. Using Google Tag Manager, you don't have to go and change the tags in every pages. But what we've done is we've gone a step further by saying, all you have to do is go to admin's page, look at property settings, accept the terms and services, and enable remarketing. And once you enable, we automatically do the data collection for you. So then what you have to do is just create a segment, link the AdWords account, and start the remarketing for you. So it's going to be a very simple process. You already use segmentation in the product. You just link AdWords, and then you can start remarketing. So we made the whole flow simpler for you over time. And finally, before I leave, I just want to call out some few key best practices that you want to follow if you do audience marketing. The first thing is to enable your site or app for audiences. For example, not all events are same for all businesses. Like for some business, the subscription model is more important. For some businesses, the loyalty program is more important. So it's important for you to tag it appropriately as goals or conversions in your site or your app. And the second thing is segment and strategize, which is basically you focus on your whole pool of users, but also start segmenting into smaller groups depending on their behavior in the funnel. And then start creating a different kind of actionability story for the different people in the different stages of the funnel. Like for example, I told you about the mobile searches pattern where men are influencing more health and beauty products, women are purchasing more sports apparels. It's important to create separate groups based on demographics and based on their behavior pattern so that you can actually have a different engagement strategy with them. And then third is meet them where they are, which is basically use any kind of channel to target these audiences. For example, I told you audiences has multiple destinations. You can use products in the GA suite, you can use products in Google. You can use any channel to actually capture these users' attention. And then you also tailor your creatives and your messaging appropriately so that you say, okay, this is a pattern, so I'll actually change my ad in such a way so that it's relevant for this group. And finally, try to broaden your match criteria. Instead of saying, I'm going to focus on the remarketing or AdWords spend on this narrow group, it's always better to broaden the search so that you get more users. But I do know that there are some valid cases where you do want to narrow down your search, but it's okay to do that. And then the fourth is measure, optimize, automate for best results, which is if you use a concept that's called paid media, it's important to import your conversions and goals from Google Analytics to AdWords and use a concept called conversion optimizer. I don't know how many of you are aware of conversion optimizer, but it's a cool concept that I'll probably give a very brief summary. What it does is it tries to work based on the target CPA, which is cost per acquisition. So what it does is once you import the goals and transactions from Google Analytics, once AdWords also has enough history about the user, then every time a user visits in real-time bidding, what AdWords does is it looks at the usage pattern, and then it figures out what is the probability of this user converting. And if the probability is high, what it does is it goes and automatically changes the CPC bid so that there is a higher chance of your ad showing. And if the probability of the user converting based on the usage pattern is low, then what it does is it reduces the CPC bid so that the probability of the ad being shown is lesser. So ultimately what it basically does, the conversion optimizer gives you more conversions for the cost by showing ads which are only relevant for the converters. And the next thing that you can do is you can use split testing in AdWords to figure out your hypothesis. Like if you have an idea that you want to try out, you can actually split into different test experiments and control and try to figure out which is performing and which is not performing. And the final thing that you can do, which is more like a bonus that you don't have to do, but if you do, you'll capture more customers, is two concepts that's called similar audiences and in-market audiences in AdWords. What it basically does is, imagine in Google Analytics you created a segment. Let's say, okay, men who follow this behavior, I want to target similarly. Let's say this pool is like 100 users. Now, if you enable similar audiences concept, what AdWords does is it looks at the usage pattern of the new users coming in, and then it figures out that this new user has a pattern that's very similar to the pattern that you have for this group, and starts automatically showing this campaign to the new users as well. So by this way, you can actually discover more new users that you didn't think of, because you had one group that you had in mind, but you're letting AdWords actually expand it further by using machine learning techniques. And the last one is in-market audiences, which is another cool thing which figures out, AdWords then figures out if we are in the market for a product right now, and if you are in the market for a product right now, it actually automatically increases a bid for you so that there is a higher chance of conversion. So let's take for an example, I just do a search for Toyota Corolla car. Like it gives you some notification that yes, I'm in the market, but it doesn't give you any confidence. But if I went from there to a website that says, compare Toyota Corolla with Honda and other cars, that gives a very strong indicator that yes, I'm in the market, I'm looking at price, I'm looking at dealership websites. So what AdWords does is it then figures out, I mean, this is just two signals. AdWords uses other signals as well to figure out that this person is in the market for this product at this particular time. So it's important for you to actually increase your bid so that your bid has a higher chance of showing, so that this click can then lead to a conversion or a purchase. Then you can actually show an ad that says, go to this dealer, go for a test drive, and things like that. So you can combine the in-market behavior that they have, and you can also combine the GA set of dimensions by saying, what is their visit duration, what is their engagement stat, and combine both and get the best of both worlds. And the other key thing is, remember I said that there are three main themes that we are working on, which is understanding the customer journey, getting insights, and delivering engaging experiences. It's important to not think of them in isolation again. It's important to just look at the customer journey, get some manual insights, use machine learning wherever possible to get automated insights. And no matter which avenue you choose, ultimately lead to get a better deliver better engaging experiences. And once you deliver better engaging experiences using whatever actionability story that you have, it's important to tag it properly so that you can complete the flow and then subsequently do analysis on the understanding the user journey to figure out how are the users who have acted upon, whom I've acted upon performing compared to users whom I did not act upon, and see where you can actually do better and ultimately create loyal customers who then become brand ambassadors for you. And the last but one slide is I want to say that these are the investments we have made in data model, insights, actions, and reporting and analysis. But there are three key things that we are also thinking of, which we'll work in the subsequent future, is build a new user-centric analysis platform where audiences as a concept will be the basic currency, and you'll actually do advanced analysis at the user level. And we also plan to use assistant and insights to deliver more intelligent data for you. Looking at your whole data will give intelligent patterns. And finally, we know that you're using GA for web and mobile app, and then you're using Firebase analytics for app analytics. But we are also planning to create a holistic story to give you a web plus app consistent story of user across mobile, web, and app. And finally, I just want to summarize the three main things from this talk is the investments we have done to the data model, which is user metrics, few key user attributes like lifetime revenue, lifetime goals, lifetime transactions, and other key user level attributes like acquisition source and channel. And then changes to our reporting and analysis, which is audiences, cohorts, LTV, user explorer, individual user report, and cross-device report. And there are a few future things coming up in this area, which is, as I said, web plus app analytics, and also web plus app analytics. And then the last thing is insights and actions, which is the data that we have used for GA Assistant and automated insights, and also all of our smart data initiative, which is smart goals, smart list, session quality metric. Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. Yeah, so the last thing is basically the investments we have done to the remarketing space, whether it's remarketing for search ads, display, or multiple destination for audiences. And the few key future investments we are making in this space is we're going to support predictive metrics, like the predictive LTV and other metrics, and also working on looking at the user pattern or user history and coming up with the probability of conversion metric, which you can then subsequently use for reporting, segmentation, or remarketing. So with that, I think I'll end my talk. These are the key takeaways. Even if you don't remember anything else, just remember that these are the three pillars that we are investing in to build a people-centric platform in Google Analytics. Thank you. Thanks. Okay.
Gracias. Tenemos 5 minutos para preguntas.
Sí.
Por favor, si el público tiene alguna consulta, yo ya tengo una, pero me la voy a guardar. Bien, yo te quiero hacer una consulta, Madu.
I don't, sorry. I think it's in my bag. Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Bien.
Yeah, channel 1.
Channel 1?
Yeah.
Ok, perfecto. Sin lugar a dudas, la medición del lifetime value nos va a ayudar a quienes estamos mucho más cercanos al marketing a poder medir la relevancia de las estrategias que realizamos. Mi consulta es más bien técnica, es saber si es que los reportes nos van a permitir medir el lifetime value asistido de los medios, ya que la interacción de último clic, si bien nos permite conocer cuál fue el medio que nos trajo la conversión, la asistencia nos permite conocer cómo influimos y cuánto tiempo nos tomó influir en ese usuario para que finalmente generara la conversión. No sé si te puedes referir a eso o es parte de los secretos de Google Analytics.
So it's basically, you're trying to say, how do you use Assistant to come up with the predictive LTV yourself?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, I think that might be the secret sauce for Google, which I don't know if we have plans to expose it outside.
Perfect.
At least as of now, I don't believe it would be. But over time, I do believe that machine learning is a concept that's going to be built as a platform that anybody can use. But as of today, I don't think you would be able to customize it, unfortunately.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. ¿Alguna otra consulta del público? ¿No? Paul?
Can I ask?
Okay.
There was another part to Pablo's question as well, and he's saying that when we are doing marketing buying and we're contributing to the assist conversions, not the last click conversions, but there's all this assist value. When you do lifetime value of customer, does that consider also that part of the customer journey?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I'm sorry I missed that. So it's not always the last click. What we have thought about and what we've realized over time is we should not give 100% of credit to the last click. It's important to also give credit to the people who are assisting towards the conversion. So the machine learning models that we're working on will also take into account the people who assisted towards the conversion. So yes, that's possible.
Okay, ¿alguna otra consulta? Bien, agradecemos a Madhu su presentación, su conocimiento. Lo vamos a tener en la tarde en una sesión técnica donde nos va a mostrar algunos de esos secretos. Así que le agradecemos nuevamente su presentación.